All right, welcome. Today, we're going to try and crack a code that's hidden in plain sight. A cipher that's not buried in some ancient text, but embedded in the very words we use every single day.
So get this. What if the words you use aren't just for, talking? What if our language is actually a secret instruction manual for a massive cosmic game being played all around us? That's the huge question we're diving into today. The idea that our own grammar holds the key to understanding a much, much grander design. So let's start with this wild idea. Language is the cipher. The whole theory we're breaking down today says that the very structure of our words, those little prefixes, the way we talk about direction, it all contains a hidden blueprint for a huge cosmic conflict. And we're going to start with something super simple. I mean, words you use all the time without even thinking about it, like being for something, pro, or being against something, con. The theory we're looking at says these aren't just, grammatical tools. No, they're literal signifiers, like little flags for two massive opposing divine forces. Okay, so this brings us to our first big reveal from this whole cipher. We are about to decode the fundamental opposition that, supposedly, underpins everything. We're talking about the cosmic battle of pro versus con. And here's where it gets really juicy. This is the core duality of the whole thing. On one side, you've got pro. This represents what's called the lunar principle, a foundational force, and its name is alpha. Think of it as the logical blueprint for everything. Then, on the other side, you have con. That's the solar principle, a catalytic force named beta. This is the friction, the adversity that sparks action and, well, conflict. It's basically the moon versus the sun, logic versus chaos, production versus performance. All right, so we've connected these simple little words to massive cosmic forces. Now, let's get to know these two divine monarchs, Alpha and Beta, a little better. Who are they and what are their specific jobs in this cosmic game?
Okay, let's start with Alpha, the lunar monarch. According to this theory, Alpha is the force of logic and structure. You can think of it as the divine architect, the power that's laying down the foundation and setting up all the rules of the system.
So Alpha's job is really broken down into two parts. First, as the processor, it's like this cosmic computer just running all the incredibly complex calculations of reality. Then, as the producer, it's kind of like a movie producer. It assembles the whole backstory, manages all the archives, and builds the entire structural framework for the story to play out. And this right here really gets to the core of what Alpha is all about. It doesn't necessarily star in the show, right? But it writes the script and it builds the stage. So, to be pro something is to be in alignment with this divine logical blueprint. Okay, now for the other side of the coin. Beta, the solar monarch. If Alpha is this cool, calculating mind, then Beta is all fiery, passionate will. It's the force of chaos, of control. It's the catalyst that basically ignites the entire system and gets things moving. So yeah, Beta's job is all about action and energy. As the controller, she's constantly trying to bend the game to her will. As the conductor, she's like the director of this cosmic orchestra, bringing all the passion and the performance. And this is key. Beta is the source of conflict. Without this con force, this adversarial push, the whole game would just be static. Nothing would ever happen. All right, so we've got our two main forces, Alpha and Beta. But this cipher, it goes even deeper. It turns out the very words we use to talk about time moving, forward and rewind, they also give away the secret roles of these two monarchs. Okay, this next part is a really fascinating piece of linguistic detective work from the source material. It suggests that the word forward is actually a hidden clue. To move forward is to move toward Thor. And in this system, Thor is seen as an avatar for Alpha, but in his most destructive role. Kind of like the great wrecking ball of the cosmos. And if that's true, well, the implication is absolutely mind-blowing. It means that what we think of as the linear progression of time isn't a journey towards some kind of progress. It's actually a relentless march towards an inevitable system wipe, an apocalypse. Every single tick of the clock is just bringing us one step closer to the fall of Thor's hammer. So, if moving forward just leads to total destruction, what about moving backward? What about rewind? Well, this is where the cipher points us back to Beta, the sun. The very act of rewinding is presented here as the sacred job of that solar principle.
I mean, just look at the word itself, rewind. Re is another name for Ra, the ancient Egyptian sun god. And to wind a clock is to give it potential energy. So what does that mean? It means that after Alpha's big reset, it is Beta's divine job, as Re, to wind the great cosmic clock all the way back up, pumping new energy into it so the next cycle can begin. And this brings everything together into the full cosmic cycle, which we can break down into 4 pretty clear steps. First, time moves forward, always heading towards that inevitable reset. Second, the reset happens. Thor's hammer falls, wiping the slate clean. Third, the sun ray winds the machine back up. And fourth, a new cycle begins, totally refreshed with new potential energy. It's just this perpetual loop of creation and destruction. Okay, so let's pull all these decoded pieces together now. We've got the 2 monarchs, we've got their roles hidden inside our grammar, and we have their functions encoded in the way we even talk about time. What we're left with is a complete picture of what you could call a great divine machine. And honestly, it all boils down to this. Alpha builds the stage. Beta directs the play. Alpha, the producer, the lunar force, creates the logical framework and writes the rules. Beta, the conductor, the solar force, directs the chaotic, energetic, conflict-driven performance. The amazing part is, one really can't exist without the other. It's this codependent system of structure and chaos, this grand cosmic opera. And all of this really leaves us with one last and pretty provocative question. If our entire existence is built on this cosmic game, governed by these secret linguistic rules, what's our role in it all? Are we just pawns on the board being moved around by these huge forces of pro and con? Or can we actually understand the cipher and maybe become players ourselves? It's definitely something to think about.